story that's slowly but surely becoming as old as time, I was sent another infuriating CBR Screen Rant Sportskeeda article. Now I say CBR Screen Rant Sportskeeda because to me they're all kind of the same thing. An amalgamation of well-written but terribly thought-out anime takes that spew over the course of a couple thousand words. An English degree being hurtled at an anime fandom at terminal velocity, with absolutely no regard for the fandom, the lore, or the truth. And while I will admit, usually when we do these kinds of videos, they're usually to the tune of 10 jutsu in Naruto that don't make any sense, well, today's article does technically come in the form of a numbered list. It's less about Naruto and more about Boruto, but more specifically about how Boruto needs to change if it ever wants to live up to the lofty ideals that Naruto left behind. That is to say that there's a writer at Screen Rant who believes that they'd be able to fix Boruto when nobody in the fandom is asking for Boruto to be fixed, which is the exact level of disconnect that we've come to expect from these kinds of websites, so at least they're consistent.
But Nick, what's the article we're going to be talking about today?
Great question. The article we're going to be talking about today, and stick with me here because it is a lengthy title, is If Naruto Wants to Make Boruto Great, There Are 5 Disappointing Details That the Sequel Needs to Fix. That is to say, today, 18 chapters into part 2 of Boruto, we're apparently going to address 5 issues that somehow Boruto needs to address. Now, undoubtedly more than halfway through their story. But don't worry, I'm sure this list won't make you want to claw your eyes out or anything. I'm kidding, it will. I've already read it. Why wouldn't I? Also, I could get prepared for today's video. 5 things that Boruto needs to change to be as great as Naruto debunked. But before we get to debunking anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, if you told me at the beginning of my Naruto YouTubing career that a large part of my career would eventually be boiled down to debunking people who claim to know and love Naruto and Boruto's articles, I'd say I don't believe you, because if anything, I have been by far and away the most critical consumer of Naruto and Boruto on this platform. I love it, and I know it very well, which means I get to critique it because I understand it. But apparently understanding not only the plot, but also the will and want of the fan base isn't a prerequisite when it comes to critiquing Naruto and Boruto, at least according to the way that this article is slapped together. So without further ado, let's get on into it. The article opens by saying, compared to Naruto, Boruto is a story all of its own, and it comes with its own set of problems. Now spanning 2 parts separated by a time skip, Boruto, Naruto Next Generations, and Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, just like its predecessor, Boruto has accumulated more than its fair share of both praise and criticism. Although it was off to a rocky start for most fans, many came around after 2 Blue Vortex, and this is 100% true. The beginning of Boruto's manga is anything but interesting. There's not really any necessarily interesting antagonists that pop up in the beginning of the story, like Haku and Zabuza, and really the manga doesn't begin to hit its stride until the Chunin exam arc, which happens a lot earlier in the manga than it does in the anime, as the first real antagonist of any real importance that pops up appears to be Momoshiki. Now, I would argue that the fan base came around on Boruto long before 2 Blue Vortex. In fact, I would argue that the fan base came around on Boruto pretty much during the Ishiki fight, which is in the mid-50s of part 1, chapter-wise. But for sure, there was definitely a resurgence of Boruto fans by the time that 2 Blue Vortex came around. The article's intro continues on by saying, there's a problem though. The young manga still hasn't done quite enough. And to that, I have one very simple question. How could a young manga achieve everything that it needs to? Like I've already established, Boruto is probably somewhere around halfway through its run. And if Boruto is following roughly the structure of Naruto, then in actuality, with this time skip, it's only about a fourth of the way through its run. As in the 700 chapter manga that is Naruto, the time skip happens in chapter 245. So why are you trying to rush this manga that you've already identified as young into accomplishing as much as its predecessor a quarter of the way through its run? The article's intro goes on to say it's in the unfortunate position of standing in the shadow of the massively influential series that spawned it, and that Naruto hasn't aged perfectly, but its sheer influence and magnitude provide it with wiggle room. Not to mention that from aside a few narrative hiccups, the story remains amazing on its own. Boruto lacks the same leeway Naruto earned by its originality and impact. There are a few major things Boruto needs to do if it has any hope of standing on equal footing with Naruto. And what do you think the first thing that this article recommends that Boruto do in order to make sure that it's one day as great as Naruto is? More screen time for important side cast characters like Sarada, Mitsuki, maybe even Shikadai, Inajin, and Chocho. You know, accomplish what Naruto was never able to do and flesh out the side cast of characters. Or maybe put more time and effort into writing female characters to be just as interesting, complex, and compelling as the male characters. Possibly introduce twists that fans wouldn't see coming, unlike they did with Naruto, where a lot of the twists were predictable. Did you guess any of those? Well, if you did, those would have been good guesses and good critiques to Boruto as an IP and a way to get get better or even equal with Naruto one day. But no. Rather, this article, with its first entry into how to make Boruto as good as Naruto, said step away from aliens, with the explanation that Boruto's decision to lean into the Otsutsuki twist has hurt it. Outside of the fact that this is practically impossible at this point of the story, as I'd like to reiterate, we are 98 40-page chapters into this story. If the aliens aren't the bad guys in Boruto, who would be? You know, they'll probably explain it, so let's see. They go on to say, Naruto's Otsutsuki twist is one of the most controversial parts of the entire series. Boruto decided, in spite of that, to fully lean into the ideas that the Otsutsuki twist put in place. Boruto himself has Otsutsuki DNA, after all. So we're like, right there, yeah, Boruto lives with Momoshiki inside of him. How are we gonna steer away from aliens? Exactly. On top of this, the reason that the introduction of Kaguya and the Otsutsuki was unpopular in Naruto Shippuden wasn't because the idea that aliens were the people that seeded the entire world with chakra was an unpopular idea, but rather because the work to introduce these aliens subconsciously and subliminally over the course of the entirety of Naruto's run wasn't done. So when Kaguya appeared, it kind of felt out of left field. Ties into the fact that Madara had been hyped up as the true final villain of this story for the entirety of Naruto, just to be taken out with a backshot by Black Zetsu through the medium of Kaguya, and you have a pretty hard pill for a lot of fans to swallow. But the aspect of the Otsutsuki reveal that people are the most upset about is definitely not the introduction of additional lore, because the introduction of the Otsutsuki actually makes a lot of Naruto make more sense. It not only explains what the tailed beasts are, but it also explains where chakra and ninjas, as we currently know them, came from. And could that twist have been landed in a better way? Yes, absolutely. But that's Naruto's issue, not Boruto's. The article goes on to say, for the somehow uninitiated, the Otsutsuki twist is when it's revealed that Naruto's plot is effectively a long con game of overpowered aliens. Boruto picked up on this in a strange way. The Otsutsuki twist, in combination with the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, led to huge advances in technology, ushered in by an era of unprecedented international cooperation. And yeah, right there in that sentence, you've identified one of the problems with wanting to move away from aliens as the bad guys. The Fourth Great Shinobi World War ushers in an era of peace and international cooperation, which means all 5 of the ninja villages and probably a bunch of smaller countries and villages all on the Naruto continent are now working together because of the shared experience of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War and the Shinobi Alliance. In fact, essentially, the Shinobi UN is set up with the Shinobi Union, and Shikamaru heads it up. So who are going to be the bad guys of Boruto if not the aliens? Are one of the villages going to go rogue? Okay, cool. The other 4 villages would destroy them. Is Konoha somehow going to get labeled as evil and have to battle against the 4 other villages? That wouldn't happen while Naruto was alive. And even if somehow it did happen, that would just be either the 2nd or 3rd Great Shinobi World Wars. Asking Boruto to stand on its own as an original story that's as good as Naruto, while highlighting the fact that the originality of Naruto is what makes it so great, and looking at a thing that is uniquely Boruto coded in the Otsutsuki and saying, oh no, don't do that, go back to the ninja stuff, is deeply hypocritical in a way that I can't even begin to explain. The author continues on by saying, by the time that Naruto fans have returned to Konoha, it's practically become a bustling high-tech metropolis. While it's jarring to see the Naruto universe characters with laptops, it's not the worst thing ever. What is bad, though, is that the Otsutsuki clan become a major force in the series that was originally about ninja. Now listen, this is a complaint that people have had about the Naruto universe since Naruto. Don't stand there and honestly say, oh, Naruto is about ninjas, Boruto isn't. Because Naruto's not about ninjas. Part 1 of Naruto's about ninjas, kind of, until you get to the final fight between Sasuke and Naruto, where Naruto turns into a fox and Sasuke turns into a demon. Naruto hasn't been about ninjas since 2006. So don't look at Boruto becoming a sci-fi story about ninjas battling aliens as a story not about ninjas. We lost the plot 2 decades ago. Anyways, the article continues by saying Boruto prompted a major shift towards science fiction away from the good old-fashioned ninja battle anime. This is notable all throughout Boruto, but maybe a quick example could come from comparing 2 massive forces, Kara and the Akatsuki. Kara is often called the Boruto equivalent of the Akatsuki, but that's a shallow reading. And yes, it is absolutely a shallow reading. Kara and the Akatsuki Actually, no, they actually are pretty similar. Listen, I was gonna agree that Kara and the Akatsuki were different, but they're really not all that different. They're both groups of hooded criminals that are effectively trying to bring about the Eye of the Moon plan.
Nick, what do you mean Kara's not trying to bring about the Eye of the Moon plan?
Yes, they are. I mean, Boro literally builds a religion to it and is actively trying to bring about the Eye of the Moon plan, but also just the idea of bringing Ishiki back to life inherently means that the world is going to be turned into a chakra fruit. At their core, both Kara and the Akatsuki are trying to accomplish the same thing, and they're kind of going about it in the same way. If the Akatsuki tried to bring Madara back to life before they collected the tailed beast, they'd effectively be Kara. The article continues by saying the only thing that they have in common is that they're a renegade group representing threats to the shinobi order. While the Akatsuki has a tangible material origin in Naruto's world, Kara seems prefigured, the result of an alien influence on the shinobi society that comes from the outside to threaten it. This is basically flowery language for saying that the Akatsuki has a more defined origin story than Kara, which is fair. I mean, yeah, we got individual backstories from every single member of the Akatsuki, but the Akatsuki were much more important than Naruto than Kara is in Boruto. Just because they seem similar doesn't mean they have to hold the same level of importance. But we get to the conclusion paragraph here that says, if Boruto wants to win back the fans of Naruto who loved its straightforward, grounded ninja action, what? What part about anything beyond the time skip was straightforward or grounded? Nagato summons the husk of the Ten Tails that fires purple dragons out of its mouths that steal the souls of the people that it touches. People with special Sharingan start equipping chakra mechs, and there's a shark guy who has a shark sword. Whatever. Then the article continues on by saying, then Boruto needs to find a way to break away from its dependence on its science fiction and supernatural syncretism. Now, syncretism is a $10 word that actually doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the context of the sentence, but it means the amalgamation of a bunch of different religions. So I think what the author's trying to say here is that Ikimoto and Kishimoto need to rely less on sci-fi tropes and the amalgamation of different ideas from Hinduism, Taoism, and Buddhism. But to this, I simply ask the question, why? It was well established that when Kishimoto finished Naruto, he wanted to write a sci-fi story. Now, while he tried to achieve that with Samurai Number 8 and failed, unfortunately, that itch for a sci-fi story was channeled into Boruto. And while Boruto definitely has more of a sci-fi feel than Naruto does, the difference is borderline unnoticeable. Like, really, take a step back from Boruto's story and point out all the real important story beats that somehow had something to do with technology. Oh, Boruto's got a switch. Cool. What? He only plays it in filler episodes. There's a train that runs through Konoha and a city on top of the stone faces. Okay, cool. Once again, we really only deal with those in filler episodes.
Oh, Nick, but what about the shinobi wear?
The shinobi wear that allows people to fly and change their limbs into blades and things? Anoki, Mu, and anybody who used the lightweight boulder jutsu could already fly. Jugo, Suigetsu, and Kabuto could all augment their body to either add rockets or change their hands into blades. Nagato's Ashura path allowed for him to literally turn his body into blades. And since we're talking about Nagato, if you really want to get into the sci-fi nitty-gritty, you could talk about things like Delta's Chakra Absorption Eye, an ability that, mind you, Nagato already had through the medium of his Rinnegan, aka a Chakra Absorption Eye. The sci-fi aspects of Boruto are negligible at best. Yeah, the new Gen Team 7 battles against Ao, who uses a bunch of different drones and a minigun that fires fireball jutsus. And that's silly objectively, but it's also barely a part of anything important in Boruto's entire story. And also basically all shinobi-ware technology that allows people to be stronger than they ever were before basically gets abandoned post-chapter, what, 45? But this final paragraph of point number 1, or I guess I should call it point number 5, Boruto's already dug its hole, and a number of fans like these very same science fiction elements, but they have caused more problems for the worse. It is abundantly clear when one just looks at the way that the battles have changed in the series compared to Naruto. And to that I say, once again, what? Look back at all of the most important fights all throughout Boruto's history. Naruto, Sasuke, the rest of the Kage, and Boruto against Momoshiki. How much of that was reliant on sci-fi technology? In fact, the only moment that sci-fi technology was involved in that fight whatsoever is when the guy who made all the sci-fi technology decided that this was his time to shine and threw a bunch of jutsu at Momoshiki that Momoshiki was able to absorb. Moving on after that, we have important battles like Team 7 versus Boro, which ends when Team 7 uses a combination combination of Sarada's Chidori and Boroshiki's Rasengan to defeat Boro. There's Naruto and Sasuke versus Ishiki, which is almost entirely taijutsu. Boruto versus Kawaki, which is entirely taijutsu, and draws more parallels to the battle between Naruto and Sasuke in the Valley of the End than quite literally any other fight. There's Boruto versus Mitsuki in Two Blue Vortex, which relies on Snake Sage mode and Flying Raijin, or Himawari versus Juro, which is essentially just a battle between two Jinchuriki. Fundamentally, what has changed in the grand landscape of battles between Boruto and Naruto? Outside of the fact that Kishimoto and Ikimoto took very active steps to make sure that taijutsu would once again become the most important thing. But because for some reason all the people that write these articles have the vernaculars of college-educated English majors, but the reading comprehension apparently of third grade ESL learners, the second point, or the fourth point, says that Boruto needs to acknowledge and handle combat problems. Boruto's new mechanics have created a massive power creep problem. And on the surface level, with the title, you're absolutely right here. Boruto's storytelling directing us slowly but surely towards the idea that the cast of Boruto is going to have to battle against the literal god of shinobi in Shibai has forced Kishimoto and Ikimoto's hands into making all of the characters in this story as powerful as possible, as fast as possible. So, admittedly, a lot of corners are being cut. Boruto comes back to the time skip stronger than Code by light years, Kawaki switching all of his stats from defensive to offensive to make him on par with Jura in strength. Himawari gets Kurama for a reason that's not entirely explained to us, and she's established to be the strongest Jinchuriki of Kurama ever. And while there is precedence for every single one of these things happening, and a solid explanation that people just tend to ignore, undoubtedly people are getting stronger in Boruto faster than they got stronger in Naruto. So is that the point that this author makes? Not at all. As they go on to say, Naruto has always suffered from problems with power creep, an off-cited example which being Madara. At his peak, Madara was unstoppable. Boruto follows up on Naruto's power creep. One example is how the series has taken some of Naruto's most broken powers and spread them around, thanks to advances in scientific ninja tools and the embedding of Otsutsuki clan into the whole narrative. So once again, we're drawing all of the problems in Boruto back to the Otsutsuki and sci-fi elements. The article continues on by saying Chakra Absorption, for example, was rare enough in Naruto that nobody minded. In Boruto, ninjutsu absorption is especially ubiquitous, and it's hurt the combat gravely. One, Chakra Absorption was not rare in the Naruto universe. In fact, some of the earliest enemies of note that we see in Naruto, like Yoroi Okado, who fought Sasuke in the first round of the 1v1s in the Chunin exam, and Jirobo, who fought against Choji in the Sasuke retrieval arc, had Chakra Absorption abilities. So did Samehada, and therefore by extension Kisame, White Zetsu, Black Zetsu, Madara to Obito through the medium of the Rinnegan, Nagato through the medium of the Rinnegan, all would release users, and all members of the Aburame clan that are able to use the Kikaichu. Every single one of them had a Chakra Absorption ability. It is nothing new. But let's move forward with that idea. The idea that things like Rinnegan palms or karma markings being able to absorb ninjutsu has gravely hurt the combat of the Boruto world. Because the Chakra Absorption abilities were not only set up to exist in Naruto, but also were done very actively in order to make sure that the most important fights that would take place in Boruto would feature taijutsu, the fundament of which Naruto was built on that slowly but surely Kishimoto got away from because of power creep. So when you're sitting there and you're watching the final battle between Sasuke and Naruto as the two of them hurl gigantic chakra bombs at each other without getting anywhere near each other, as you itch for the days when the two of them would just duke it out with their fists, that's exactly what Kishimoto and Ikimoto are trying to accomplish by introducing Chakra Absorption abilities at the highest level of power. If you want them to be ninjas again, you gotta nullify the high-level ninjutsu. But the article goes on, unfortunately, saying scientific ninja tools were developed during the time skip. In fact, the once leader of Kara, Jigen, played a big role in their development and proliferation. Meanwhile, Konoha would develop its own team for their advancement and dispersal. They're a cool idea in a limited context, but there are two main problems. The first is that their potential isn't fully explored. The second is that potential itself, scientific ninja tools, are absolutely broken. Now, scientific ninja tools are a big part of Boruto. Whether it be the Shinobi Gauntlet, Naruto's chakra absorbing arm, or just Kawaki as an existence, scientific ninja tools do play a big role in Boruto's storytelling. But outside of Kawaki, how often are we talking about scientific ninja tools? Well, I guess the better explanation would be, outside of Amido's creations, how often are we talking about scientific ninja tools? When was the last time in Boruto a Shinobi Gauntlet came up? I'll wait. Was it the Chunin exams? Like 4 real human years ago? And you want to know why we haven't heard about the Shinobi Gauntlet in literal years? Not because the potential was underexplored or underused, but because they were being used as a plot device. Shinobi Gauntlets were supposed to be representative of Boruto's character arc, or at least the beginning of Boruto's character arc, a shortcut that led to supposed massive power. However, in the moment where it truly matters, those shortcuts fail you, and those shortcuts can truly never replace the hard work that could be done to reach that level of power without them. Which is, I don't know, the entire point of Naruto, and the reason we haven't seen the Shinobi Gauntlets since they were identified to be a shortcut that could lead to possible corruption and laziness. On top of that, think about how easily Naruto was able to dispatch Boruto, who had a Shinobi Gauntlet on. A literal clear-cut example of hard work persevering over shortcuts. So while yes, the Shinobi Gauntlet and a lot of the scientific ninja tools that come out of Konoha would make Genin pretty powerful Chunin, at the highest level of combat, hard work will always persevere beyond any scientific advancement, which is why we haven't seen scientific advancements being used by the good guys. Yes, you could say that Amado managed to make Code and Kawaki incredibly powerful through scientific advancements, but they're the antagonists of the story. They're supposed to be physical manifestations representative of the fact that hard work will persevere over their scientific advancements. Working for something will always be better than not working for it. Which is why when Kawaki gets all of his powers swapped over to offense by Amado, even though he didn't do anything to deserve that power, when he goes toe-to-toe with Boruto, he'll lose. But somehow this point gets even worse as they continue on by saying, from afar, it feels like Boruto has no handle on its own mechanics. There's endless escalation, from Naruto's Baryon mode to Boruto's most broken jutsu, Omnipotence. That sentence alone makes me want to die. Calling things like Baryon mode and Omnipotence endless escalation is wild, because one, Baryon mode was a one-time use mode that not only came at the cost of Kurama's life, but also probably should have come at the cost of Naruto's life. And even after accessing this mode, Naruto still wasn't able to completely defeat Ishiki. And two, Omnipotence only exists in Naruto through the medium of Ada, who can't control it consciously. Yeah, Ada has the ability to subconsciously manifest the desires of the people she loves most, but even she herself admits the fact that when Sarada and Sumire come to her, that she could possibly use Omnipotence to reverse what she did to Boruto, but she has literally no way of predicting what could happen, and therefore it is highly not recommended. How are either of those abilities breaking the fabric of the power scaling of the Boruto universe? But the article continues on by saying all of these factors in combination have fundamentally changed how fights work in Boruto compared to Naruto, with many fights centered around taijutsu, like that's a bad thing, rather than ninjutsu, since ninjutsu can be absorbed and nullified. This isn't inherently a problem on its own, but then the article gets to its third point, which is do right by the supporting cast. Naruto's supporting cast is fantastic and deserves better than they've gotten. And I'm actually not even gonna read this point out loud to you, it's not worth it. But the one sentence that does a pretty good job of explaining what these 3 paragraphs are about is, however, what's undeniable is that Naruto's own supporting cast has been done entirely dirty, either abandoned, nerfed, or shoehorned into vacuous helper roles. And you know what? They're right. We don't see the Naruto supporting cast all that much. You want to know why, though? Because it's called Boruto, Naruto Next Generations. It's not Naruto, and if we're gonna sit here and fling criticism at Boruto for not including the side cast of characters from Naruto, then I hope you have at least 2 fingers, because you also gotta point that finger at Naruto in everything post the Sasuke retrieval arc. In fact, one of the biggest talking points of this entire point is the fact that Rock Lee is underutilized. And while I agree, Rock Lee would absolutely be more important in this era now that taijutsu is more important than ever, but how are you going to sit there and complain about Rock Lee not being involved in the story when Metal Lee, Rock Lee's actual child, also a taijutsu specialist, is also not included in the story? Why would Shino, Ino, Kiba, Tenten, Rock Lee, or any of the other Konoha 12 play a big role in this story when they didn't play a big role in their own story? On top of that, a lot of them do play a big role. Not only is Shino heavily involved in the beginning of Boruto, as he is Boruto's homeroom teacher, but Ino is in charge of the surveillance corps and the interrogation team, and Shikamaru is literally the Hokage. Plot currently revolves around trying to get Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata back from the places they've been kidnapped to. And while sure Tenten, Choji, Rock Lee, and Kiba don't play a huge role in Boruto, I'd love for you to find me the episodes in everything post the Sasuke retrieval arc where they do play a huge role in Naruto. Let's be a bit more focused on getting characters from this generation's screen time before we start worrying about characters who got 700 episodes dedicated to their story. But listen, I understand this point. Everyone everybody wants to see more of the original cast. Naruto fans want to see Naruto characters. Unless, of course, apparently it's Naruto. Because the second to last point that this article makes is stop throwing Naruto to the wolves. Boruto accidentally undermines Naruto's entire story. And listen, Naruto undermines his own story. Boruto doesn't need to do that. So this point espouses off the previous point, which said that the cast of Naruto was underutilized, as this point opens up by saying, above all, this affects Naruto's very own protagonist. Boruto's story isn't an accident. It's intentionally written, and it could have been written different, which is, I guess, what we're trying to establish in this very article. The article continues on by saying, this includes the story and fate of the 7th Hokage, who needs no introduction, Naruto Uzumaki. Kishimoto might have been on board with Boruto, but countless fans aren't, and for good reason, especially when it comes to the main character of the series Kishimoto himself wrote. As previously mentioned, no fan makes their way to Boruto without going through Naruto first. Time and time again, Boruto has done a disservice to Naruto by undermining him. Has it? Has it really done that? Because if you were to poll the average Naruto fan who's also seen or read Boruto and ask them what Naruto's top 5 fights are, I can 100% guarantee you that both the Momoshiki fight and the Ishiki fight are in there. 2 fights where Naruto becomes a literal mountain of a man and fights against gods successfully. But there's more words to read as the article continues, saying it's one thing that he receives a colossal nerf, especially after his and Sasuke's fight with Momoshiki. I'm assuming the author means Ishiki here, because Naruto does not receive a massive nerf after his fight against Momoshiki. But whatever, we continue as the article says, what's worse is the massive time skip between Naruto and Boruto leaves almost the entirety of Naruto's tenure as Hokage underexplored. And to me, this is the most aggravating sentence in the entirety of this article, because there are 9, yes, 9 light novels that exist during this blank period. And while admittedly Naruto is not Hokage during all 9 of these light novels, if you're curious about the blank era, just read the content that Kishimoto co-wrote. There are literally thousands of pages of content to consume. But if you really want to know about what Naruto is like as Hokage, you can also read Naruto Gaiden, the 7th Hokage in the Scarlet Spring, Naruto Shinden, Parent and Child Day, Sasuke Shinden, the Star Teacher's Pupil, Shikamaru Shinden, a cloud dancing and forlorn falling petals, Kakashi Retsudan, Sasuke Retsudan, Naruto Retsudan. In fact, of the 25 light novels that exist, 18 of them take place either during the blank period or after it. And this is what's so baffling to me. Every single time a person is a strictly Naruto fan that interacts with Boruto content and they're like,
Oh, why isn't Naruto more in it?
Because it's called Boruto, and also because there's a thing called light novels. Learn to read. Kishimoto has, for the longest time, been giving people exactly what they want, which is a sequel that stands on its own while also providing us with Naruto content in the form of light novels. I'm sorry there's no pictures in it, but trust me, the stories are good. There's more words! As the article continues on by saying, what is there isn't impressive, to say the least. A great example can be found in Amagakure. It's not very charming. After an entire series where Naruto aspires to be Hokage and preaches love while sticking up for the possibility of change within the status quo, that Naruto continues to trend of the previous Hokage by outright ignoring or underserving villages outside of Konoha. So the complaint here is that Naruto is a bad Hokage because he doesn't lead other villages. First off, international diplomacy is not Naruto's job. His job as Hokage is to be in charge of Konoha. International diplomacy is actually Shikamaru's job as the head of the Shinobi Union. But even if you do want to head down that road for some reason, Naruto actually does treat all of the other villages with an insane amount of respect, and you would know this if you had read Shikamaru's light novel. As when all the other villages are upset that Konoha has been making scientific ninja advancements, Naruto, in a bid to avoid war and also advance other villages, shares all of the information that they have that other people wanted to keep classified, allowing all of the villages to reach the same level of advancement that Konoha had over the course of the blank period. But it gets worse. As the more words keep saying, as it's clearly shown when Boruto was interrogated and tortured in Two Blue Vortex, and this is wild because this means the author is current with the manga, Naruto also hasn't done much to change Konoha's political structure. Naruto left the possibility in place for Shikamaru in his absence to turn Konoha into a a surveillance state. And listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Naruto shouldn't have gotten rid of the elders, but we also don't know if Naruto, as the Hokage, has the power to do that without straight up murdering them. The Konoha elder system is kind of a question mark to even the most hardcore fans. We're not entirely sure at which the system a new Hokage is chosen, but we do know that the elders have something to do with it. And as the elders are seen in Boruto reporting directly to the Fire Daimyo, the most likely assumption to be made here is that the elders work for the Fire Daimyo. Also, how are you going to blame Naruto, who gets abducted against his will by a kid he thought was his own son, for Shikamaru 3 years later turning Konoha into what you identify as a surveillance state? On top of this, how is Konoha a surveillance state? The usage of the Senrigan and Ada, the chakra tracking system run by the Cypher Corps and Ino? Because that's hardly a surveillance state. If you want the story to return to that of ninjas, why wouldn't these ninjas, who know all about the ways that certain people can sneak into villages and destroy them from the inside out, something that we've seen happen a couple of times in the Naruto universe, take every possible precaution to make sure that anybody who comes into the village, they know? Ties into the fact that the majority of the world believes that Boruto killed Naruto, the strongest guy ever. Why wouldn't they try to keep an eye on him? But the article continues on by saying, here's the simple fact. Naruto could have been written as a better Hokage. He just wasn't. And it's like, literally, what more do you want Naruto to do? Naruto, while Hokage, saves Konoha from the Otsutsuki threat twice. And as in the earliest parts of Naruto, the only stipulation to be Hokage was to be the strongest person in Konoha. What else was he supposed to do? Sorry, he's not a great administrator. That's what he has Shikamaru for. But if Naruto's not a good Hokage because he didn't abolish the administrative system of Konoha, then there's never been a good Hokage. But the final paragraph of this point says there are moments in Boruto where Naruto clearly struggles with whether he should have become Hokage in the first place. Boruto slaps fans in the face, making the answer to Naruto's question a big resounding no. The chance isn't gone forever for Naruto to be fixed, though. Boruto is already making big steps with this by bringing Boruto closer to Naruto in ideals and heroism, but the famous overpowered orphan of yore has yet to be given a full comeback himself. Naruto defeat... Ooh! Naruto leads a task force of all of the other Kage in a battle against Momoshiki and Kenshiki, wins, fights against an even stronger foe in Ishiki, is willing to give his life to protect his son and the rest of the world by activating Baryon mode, something he thought would kill him, manages to shave enough of Ishiki's chakra away that Ishiki only has a couple of minutes to survive so Kawaki can trick him, does everything within the capacity of his power to bring Kawaki into the fold of his family, sets up countermeasurement systems against Code that keep Code out of Konoha for a very long time. In fact, Code doesn't launch his assault against Konoha until after Naruto is gone, defeats Delta in one-on-one combat while also protecting his loved ones, and oh yeah, still finds the time to work with Sai and Sasuke to keep an eye on the Otsutsuki and Kara simultaneously. Not to mention the fact that by the time that Boruto's story rolls around, Naruto's only been Hokage for a couple of years, and I'd say he's doing a pretty bang-up job. But who knows? Maybe I'm biased. And with that, we've come to the final point of this article. Thank God. Which is fix Naruto's biggest mistake. Boruto finally has a chance to do something better with Naruto's world. The reality is that Naruto's ineffectiveness has been a problem with this franchise for a long time. It's bad enough that Naruto has never gotten the opportunity to show off his abilities as Hokage. It's worse that the full effects of the conflicts, arguably the result, at least in part of an ineffective Hokage, are just as underexplored as in Naruto. That sentence sounds like it means something, but it doesn't. The article continues on by saying, in fact, Boruto is in many ways seen even more myopically Konoha obsessed than Naruto itself. Now, what this author was trying to accomplish with this "I'm smarter than you" paragraph was effectively say that Boruto seems more obsessed with Konoha than even Naruto, and that Boruto is an opportunity that Naruto tripped up with. The opportunity to explore more regions outside of Konoha, to explore the incredibly rich and vast world of Naruto. And listen, that is a somewhat legitimate gripe that one could have with Naruto. Yes, obviously we introduced cool places like the Land of Snow and the village hidden in the clouds, and unfortunately those are places that we don't necessarily get to explore at least all that much in the manga canon. However, Naruto is not One Piece. It's a story about a person from a place who stays in that place and wants to lead that place. Konoha is as much a part of the story as Naruto is, as Konoha is Naruto's goal. The same way that the Grand Line and Laugh Tale are a part of Luffy as they're a part of his goal. And we spend tons of time in Konoha because Konoha needs to be fleshed out. We need to understand its motivation. We need to see its change in attitude towards Naruto. And fundamentally, Boruto is not more myopically focused on Konoha. The purview of attention has expanded far beyond just Konoha or even just the Naruto continent in Boruto. We are now, from a plot perspective in Boruto, talking about universes. Boruto is using the rotation of the entire globe in his Rasengan Uzahiko. Yes, we're not seeing what the soba tastes like in the Hidden Mist Village, but the spectrum of interest in Boruto is far beyond what it ever was in Naruto, with the possible exception of the end of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. But the article continues on by saying one of the biggest mistakes Naruto made was refusing to zoom out a little bit to take the big picture of Konoha's political power into view, then zoom back in on the lives of the individuals who actually make the whole shinobi system work by doing the grunt work, the non-heroes, the shopkeepers, the citizens of other villages, the surely complicated lives of the people just out walking their dogs. Because that's what shonen fans want. That's what fans would thank Kishimoto for writing. An entire chapter dedicated to the complicated life of a dog walker in Amagakure. What are we talking about here? This is a battle shonen. If you want to learn about the complex political interchangings of individuals not involved in combat, go watch Vinland Saga or Code Geass or Paranoia Agent. If you want a story where ninjas punch aliens, then yeah, Boruto's gonna be right up your alley, because fundamentally, that's what we're talking about here. A story where ninjas punch aliens. And if you described that premise to a 14-year-old me, you know, the demographic that shonen anime and manga are aimed at, I'd say that sounds like the dopest thing I've ever heard. Give me some of that. So are any of these points legitimate criticisms that would make Boruto even one iota better? No. This is flowery rote and drivel that is somehow written by somebody who's actually read the manga. And once again, I'm just out of words for these Screen Rant CBR Sportskeeda articles. Just when you think the bottom has been shifted, it goes lower. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. What are some legitimate criticisms that you believe could be levied against Boruto that, if changed, could possibly turn it into a story that is equal to or better than Naruto? Let me know in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I gotta detox from this somehow.